It seems like everywhere you turn these days, folks are talking about like finding peace and purpose, this whole digital world we live in. And, we got this article sent in from, let me see, the Spiritual Seek website. Yeah, that's it. Called The Impact of Technology on Spiritual Growth, Enhancer or Obstacle.
Oh.
And it really got me thinking, like, is all this tech we have, is it actually helping us or maybe even kind of hindering our search for meaning? You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, that's definitely a question that, well, a lot of us are wrestling with. And, what's interesting is this article, it points out how technology, it often like makes these promises of quick spiritual fixes, but sometimes those can be a little misleading.
Oh, tell me about it. Like, I've tried some of those meditation apps, right? The ones that promise to like give you enlightenment in 10 minutes or something. It's almost like we expect this like instant spiritual gratification now.
Exactly. It creates this this illusion of ease, I guess you could call it, around spirituality. But, the reality is deep spiritual growth often requires like facing discomfort, questioning your beliefs, and just sitting with uncertainty. And those are all things that our tech-driven culture often tries to avoid. The article actually, it uses this example of social media where, you might see a quote about letting go of attachment, but it's like right there between an ad for some new gadget and someone's like perfectly filtered vacation photo. It's almost like spiritual growth becomes just another item on our to-do list.
And that kind of makes you wonder, right? Like, are we really absorbing these spiritual concepts, or are we just kind of, I don't know, skimming the surface?
That's a great question. And, the article, it really emphasizes that true spiritual growth, it often involves practices that require dedication and perseverance. Things like meditation or self-reflection. These aren't things you can just like download an app for, right?
Yeah.
They require consistent effort and the willingness to kind of confront those parts of ourselves that we might not always like.
So it's like the difference between, I don't know, like instant coffee and a slow, mindful brew.
Oh, that's a great analogy. One gives you that quick fix. The other is a process that takes time and attention. And the article, it argues that this, this emphasis on instant gratification in our tech-driven world, it can make it harder to cultivate the patience and the discipline that a lot of spiritual traditions, they really emphasize those things.
Yeah, another thing that really struck me about the article is how it points out how technology promises connection, but it can actually lead to more isolation. It seems kind of like a paradox, doesn't it?
It is. It really is. And it's something that a lot of researchers are exploring these days. We have more ways to connect than ever before. Yet loneliness, it's on the rise. The article, it dives into how social media can kind of fuel this feeling of loneliness by creating this illusion of meaningful relationships, but they often lack that depth, that genuine connection.
And I think, the pressure to present like a perfect online self, I think that adds to that isolation too, right? It's like everyone's curating their highlight reel, which makes it hard to be authentic and vulnerable.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. We end up comparing ourselves to these idealized versions of other people, and that can make us feel even more alone in our struggles. And you know what? It also distracts us from the kind of deep, meaningful connections that, the kind that often nurture spiritual growth. You know what I mean?
So have you ever felt lonely? Even when you're surrounded by people or you're constantly like connected online, it's something to think about. This whole discussion it's making me really kind of reevaluate my own relationship with technology.
I think that's really important, to acknowledge the complexity of this relationship. The article's not saying that all technology is bad. It's about being mindful of how we use it and recognizing that certain aspects can hinder our spiritual growth if we're not careful.
Right, that makes sense. It's like technology is this powerful tool that can be used for good or for ill, right? And it's up to us to wield it wisely. One thing that the article points out is how technology can kind of amplify our materialistic tendencies. It's like having a 24/7 shopping mall and entertainment center right in our pockets, always tempting us with more stuff and distractions.
And that constant bombardment, it can make it harder to focus on inner fulfillment, which is often, at the heart of spiritual growth. The source, it actually suggests some practical ways to kind of combat this, like setting boundaries around tech use, being mindful of how we spend our time and energy, and prioritizing activities that foster, genuine connection and inner peace.
That reminds me, there's that "Are you a tech addict?" quiz in the article. It asks you to like agree or disagree with statements like, I check my smartphone every hour, at least. Or, I can't imagine how people used to live without all the comforts of today's technology. I won't give away the scoring system or anything here, but take a moment, just consider those statements and where you might fall on the spectrum,
Yeah.
you know.
It's a fun way to get us thinking about our own tech habits,
Yeah.
right? And whether they're truly serving us. The key takeaway here is that technology itself isn't the problem. It's about how we use it and whether it aligns with our values and goals. Especially when it comes to our spiritual journeys, it's important to remember, the article, it doesn't like paint technology as the bad guy here. It actually says that technology can be like a powerful tool for spiritual growth, you know?
Right, right. It's not about like ditching our smartphones and everything, right?
Yeah.
But it's about, I guess, being more intentional, with how we use them.
Exactly. Yeah. For instance, think about like online communities dedicated to, specific spiritual practices or virtual retreats, those
Yeah.
make those teachings accessible to, well, people who might not be able to like get to them otherwise. There are even apps designed to help you cultivate mindfulness in daily life.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It's like having this whole library of spiritual resources
Yeah.
right there at your fingertips. Though I guess the challenge is, knowing how to use these tools effectively and not letting them become like substitutes for, real world experiences and connections.
That's a good point. And that's where the article's emphasis on discernment comes in. We need to be, mindful of how we're using technology and ask ourselves, is this actually deepening my spiritual understanding, or is it just like a temporary distraction?
It's like that old saying, you could lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink,
Yeah.
right? Technology, you can provide the tools, the information, but it's up to us to engage with them in a meaningful way.
I love that analogy. And, it highlights the need to shift away from that passive consumption model that technology, it often encourages,
Yeah.
We need to be more active, more intentional in our approach to spiritual practices. It's about choosing quality over quantity, depth over breadth.
So instead of like mindlessly scrolling through, 100 inspirational quotes on Instagram, whatever, maybe we choose one that really like resonates with us and take the time to really reflect on its meaning and how it applies to our lives.
Precisely. Yeah. Or instead of joining every online spiritual group we see, right? Maybe we select a few that genuinely align with our values and commit to, meaningful engagement with that community. It's about being present, being intentional, and using technology as a tool for growth,
Yeah.
not just a source of distraction.
It strikes me that this whole conversation, it kind of ties into this concept that the article mentions, the illusion of control. You know how with technology we can like customize our news feeds, filter out dissenting opinions and curate this like perfect online persona.
You're right. It creates the sense that we have like complete control over our digital environments, right?
Yeah.
But true spiritual growth, it often requires us to like surrender to the unknown, embrace uncertainty, and be okay with, not having all the answers.
It's like trying to navigate this winding mountain path
Right.
with a GPS that only shows like straight lines, right? You might reach your destination, but you miss all the breathtaking scenery and
Yeah.
the unexpected discoveries along the way.
That's beautifully put. I like that. Those detours and those unexpected moments of getting lost. That's often where the most profound growth happens, It's about being open to the mystery of the journey.
So how do we kind of reconcile these seemingly contradictory aspects of technology, right? How do we embrace its benefits without falling prey to its pitfalls? And it feels like such a delicate balance.
It is. It's a delicate dance. And the article, it doesn't offer any like simple solutions, but it stresses the importance of self-awareness, critical thinking and setting clear intentions for our technology use. We need to ask ourselves, is this technology, is it serving my highest good? Is it helping me connect more deeply with myself, with others, with the world around me?
And if the answer is no, right, then maybe it's time to step back and reassess our relationship with that technology. Maybe we need to create some space for those practices that nourish our souls, that help us reconnect with what truly matters.
Exactly. It's about remembering that technology is simply a tool. And like any tool, it can be used, constructively or destructively. The power ultimately lies with us.
I love that the power lies with us.
Yeah.
So as you listen to this, consider how technology is shaping your own, spiritual journey. Is it a source of support or distraction, a catalyst for growth, or a barrier to connection?
Those are questions worth pondering,
Yeah.
As we navigate this increasingly complex digital world, and as we kind of wrap up our deep dive here, remember that the most important technology you possess is within you, your heart, your mind, your spirit.
That's such a powerful reminder. Thanks for diving into this with me. What are your final thoughts on how we can navigate this intersection of technology and spirituality?
It really is fascinating, isn't it? We often kind of frame the conversation as technology versus spirituality, but this article, it really encourages us to see that it's not that simple.
Yeah, it's definitely more nuanced than that. Like you were saying earlier, technology itself isn't good or bad, right? It's how we use it that matters.
Exactly. And the article, it brings up this idea of a right relationship. It's a concept that's often discussed in Buddhism. And it's about, finding a healthy and balanced way to relate to everything in our lives, not just technology, but also our work, our food, our relationships, even our own thoughts and emotions.
So how would we apply that right relationship concept to technology then? Especially in the context of spiritual growth.
Well, I think it might start with recognizing that technology is a tool, right? And like any tool, it can be used skillfully or unskillfully. We can use it to connect with like-minded individuals, access spiritual teachings from all over the world, or even create reminders for ourselves to, pause and breathe throughout the day. But we can also get caught in that trap of endless scrolling, right? Comparing ourselves to others online, or constantly seeking external validation.
Right. Yeah. It's like that fine line between using technology to enhance our spiritual practice
Hmm.
and letting it become a crutch or a distraction. The article talks about the importance of setting boundaries, which I think is key here.
Oh, absolutely. Maybe it's setting aside specific times of day to unplug completely, or maybe it's being more mindful of how we use social media instead of mindlessly scrolling for hours. Perhaps we limit it to a certain amount of time each day and focus on interacting with content that genuinely inspires us or helps us grow.
I like that. Setting an intention for how we're going to use our tech,
Yeah.
rather than just letting it use us. It reminds me of the article's concluding question. It asks, how can we harness the benefits of technology while staying mindful of its potential pitfalls on our spiritual journeys? Hmm. It's a question we all have to answer for ourselves, right?
Yeah, and there's no one right answer. It's a process of ongoing exploration and adjustment. But I think that question itself is a great starting point. It invites us to be more conscious and intentional in our relationship with technology.
So to wrap things up here, what would you say is the most important takeaway for our listeners today?
I would say it's about remembering that technology is a powerful force in our lives, and its impact on our spiritual growth can be profound, for better or worse. But ultimately, we have the power to choose how we engage with it. We can use it to deepen our connection with ourselves, with others, and with something larger than ourselves. Or we can let it distract us from what truly matters. The choice is ours.
That's a powerful message to end on. Thanks for diving into this topic with me. It's given me a lot to think about, and I hope it's done the same for you, dear listener. Until next time, be mindful, be intentional, and may your journey be filled with both wonder and wisdom.